Dan Campbell, to me, is a composite of like 17 different professional wrestlers. That's what he comes off as. With mostly Hulk Hogan coming through. Am I wrong?
I love the
when
Hulk Hogan
when he
comparison.
threw the arms out like that.
And it's just so on point. Everything on point. Like, I'm sitting here 7 a.m., sitting in my office. I got excited to go play Sunday night. Like, I'm like, Dan, can I come do pregame warm-up with y'all? I got excited.
Well, we will be there. We will be there. You could. There's still time. There's still time. Unless you're on the reserve retired list. If you're a free agent, there's time. You can sign with either team. You can do two jobs at once.
I could hit up Teddy Bridgewater, find out how he did it. Get on.
Well, you spend the season coaching high school football, win a championship, and then you're a hot commodity.
That is very true.
Who was upset about that? Oh, Rodney. Rodney thought it was a slap in the face to Hendon Hooker for Teddy Bridgewater to just show up. He thought it was an indictment of Hendon Hooker. The Lions said it wasn't. I wouldn't expect them to say otherwise. Regardless, Teddy will be in the house on Sunday night. Hendon will be in the house. Jared Goff will be in the house. Hulk Hogan might be in the house. We'll all be there for one of the biggest regular season games in recent years, if not ever. For the first time ever, a pair of 14-win teams are meeting in the regular season. For the first time since 2019, the 1-seed versus 5-seed conundrum is on the line. And there was one other thing. By the way, the show's PFT Live. It's New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's. Let us be the first. That there was something that Dan Campbell said that was a little crack of recognition that things might not go as planned on Sunday. He said it proved we can go anywhere and win at worst. Well, don't entertain at worst. I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit the vibe that he'd entertain at worst. In his mind, they're winning on Sunday night, not going to Tampa or Atlanta or L.A. the following weekend. So when he mentioned that at worst, it's like, I didn't think this was a guy that ever entertained at worst.
It's interesting because I said it Sunday night at halftime of our show that the realization is both of these teams going into Sunday night control what can happen once they get in the playoffs. Like, I don't care if they start with home field advantage, they start as the 5th seed, they can realistically get to the Super Bowl. And this game is going to have all of the hype in the world. It's going to feel like a mini Super Bowl, but one of these teams has to lose, and they're gonna be a 14-win team. They should have the most confidence ever going into the playoffs, for one, because of the way they've been playing throughout the end of this season and the talent, the guys, the coaching staff that they have. They should feel confident, but you're going to have this huge letdown coming off of this game, and you're going to have to go play that next week in the most important game of the year. So I see what you're saying, but I also think Dan Campbell is being realistic of, I have a team that I feel can win the Super Bowl. The last thing I need is for us to win this last game and have this huge feeling of like failure. And I remember 2019, we won a lot of games, and we won 12 games on the Patriots that year. We played the Miami Dolphins last game of the year. If we win, we get a certain seed. I think we would have got a bye week. We lose, and like, you could feel our team just feel defeated, like it was it. And that very next week, we lost to the Tennessee Titans in a wild card round because it was such a letdown because we knew what was at stake and we couldn't overcome what ultimately happened for us that season.
And I think this situation is so unique because, number one, it is going to receive a ton of hype. Number two, it is a playoff game without playoff game consequences. You're not done if you lose. You just have a much harder road to the Super Bowl. You have to win 3 games. You have to go on the road. You'll be on the road the whole time unless the 6 or 7 seeds win both in the wild card round and in the divisional round, which isn't out of the question this year given that the Packers and Washington, not going to sell them short, when we saw what they did on Sunday night. They could go on the road and upset someone. The Packers clearly can go on the road and upset someone. So, yeah, it becomes a much more daunting path. But he's right. The Lions haven't lost on the road at all this year. They can do it. The Vikings have one loss so far on the road this year. They can do it as well. But the biggest challenge, Devin, is going to be to reset. If you lose with all the buildup, with that giant brass ring that's going to give you a week off and guaranteed home games throughout the playoffs, that letdown on the other side is going to be the thing that you have to process, especially if you got to turn around and play on Saturday in the postseason.
Dang.
I doubt that they'll do that to the team that loses, since you're playing the very last game on Sunday night when you've got windows on Sunday and Monday night. I'd be shocked if the loser of this game has to go on the road and play the following Saturday. But still, you got to flush it quickly, and you got to get ready to go, because the next train's coming on the track, and you got to go catch it on its turf. That's going to be a challenge, especially because Tampa Bay, when they're firing all cylinders, not easy. Rams, when they're firing on all cylinders, not easy. The way the Falcons played the other night, if they end up taking the division because the Buccaneers don't finish the job on Sunday, that won't be easy either. So, yeah, whoever loses this game, because it feels like there's going to be a round 3, but the reality is the last 2 times we've seen this, 93 and 2019, there wasn't a round 3. There wasn't a round 3. And the last time we saw this happen, Seattle lost to the 49ers, and Seattle won in the wild card round at Philly, but then lost at Green Bay in the divisional round. So it feels inevitable they're going to meet again, but it also doesn't. And we'd like to – we're probably going to want a round 3 after what happens on Sunday, whatever it might be, but it's far from guaranteed it's going to happen. So, yeah, this game carries so many implications. And against all that, Dan Campbell did what he said he was going to do. I thought maybe he'd pull a little okey-doke on us, Devin, and not play his guys at all or pull them out in the second half. They went wire to wire and got the 40-34 win over the 49ers.
And to that point, because once you get in the game and it's a back-and-forth game, and I've always said as a coach, you start coaching your guys, even in the preseason of, all right, I have this plan, but then the game gets going and it's like, it's not kind of going the way I envision. And it turns into this shootout kind of back and forth game. When do you decide to take your guys out if you did have that plan? Because as competitors, as players, you get into the game, it's hard to just say, you know what, we're going to now go sit down and not finish this game. So I give credit to Dan Campbell because he knows his team. And as much criticism, and I think obviously when you look back on games, some of the decision-making and all of that, when you don't win, it gets blown out of control and you talk about this and that. But when you just think about being in the moment and understanding your team and what decisions and what calls to make, he's done an unbelievable job of just knowing the pulse of the guys in the locker room, of feeling it out, of going, when to go for it on 4th down. And all of us are critical of it, how to do it over and over again. They did it last night again. They've built this way of playing football. And I think it's incredible to see that everybody is all in. Different guys on this defense stepping up, guys that haven't played, guys returning, playing a little out of position. Like, they're just doing everything possible to continue to win football games, and it's under his leadership. And I think that's what's so fun about this game going into Sunday night is both of these head coaches have done just a great job of saying and knowing their team, whether it's the quarterbacks, whether it's the defense, different skill players. It just feels like they keep making the right calls, and they have all these just unreal moments that we get to look into in the locker room after games. It's going to be so fun, and I think Dan Campbell and understanding what this team has been through, losing Aiden Hutchinson in the beginning of the season has just kind of dominoed into losing more and more guys, and to look up and still have 14 wins and a chance to have the number 1 seed and a division. I mean, he's done an unbelievable job, and so has Kevin O'Connell. So maybe the winner of this game becomes Coach of the Year. Like, we'll see how it all works out.
Well, and that's the reality of the various awards: MVP, Rookies of the Year on both sides of the ball, Comeback Player of the Year, Coach of the Year. We can talk about odds all we want, and we do because it helps fill the hours throughout the regular season. But until the dust settles on the season, you don't know. And a lot of times the answer becomes obvious once the final game has been played. In this case, Vikings at the Lions Sunday night, 8:20 p.m. kickoff on NBC and Peacock. But coverage begins at 7 o'clock Eastern with all of us from Football Night America at Ford Field in Detroit. For those who were wondering, and I'm sharing this because I was wondering, why didn't the Giants and Cowboys get together again in 1993? Because the Giants were the 5 seed after they lost the 4 seed, actually, not the 5 seed. It was because there were 3 divisions at the time. So if you were the number 1 wild card, you were the 4 seed, and you got a home game. The Giants beat the Vikings, and I remember that game well. Jim McMahon at quarterback for Minnesota, windy day at the Meadowlands. The Giants won, but then they went to San Francisco and lost 44-3 in the divisional round, blocking a rematch between the Cowboys and the Giants in the NFC Championship. So maybe there'll be a rematch, maybe there won't. We have to treat it like this is the only time these two teams are going to cross paths. But you got 3 teams in the NFC North in the playoffs. It feels almost inevitable we're going to have 1 or 2 NFC North games, especially since they're the 3 best, well, I don't know, 2 of the 3 best teams. The Eagles are in that mix as well, and the Packers have lost 5, and they may not even be the 6th seed. They may fall all the way to the 7th seed in the NFC because Washington right now holds that 6th spot. If Washington wins over Dallas, Washington ends up being the 6th seed. So Green Bay, with those losses, now they've come twice to the Lions, twice to the Vikings, and once to the Eagles, but still those 5 losses put them at the 7th spot. So that's a heck of a playoff tree, especially at the top in the NFC. One last thing about that speech last night, and I'm willing to acknowledge that I'm oblivious to something, even though I've been doing this for 50 years. But I've heard twice now in the last day because, oh, by the way, we do have Kevin O'Connell on the program later today. We usually don't have guests unless we're at the Super Bowl, the Scouting Combine, but we're making an exception with one of the biggest regular season games ever looming, and he said yes. That's even more. Like, I feel like the dog that caught the car. I don't know what to do with it, but he said yes, so we're going to have Kevin O'Connell on later. I heard him yesterday say it, and I heard Campbell say it last night. Roll the ball out. When did that become a saying? Because you never roll a football anywhere. Bowling, bocce, I get it. You don't roll a football. Have I just missed that in the last 50 years of following the NFL? Roll the ball out?
I've always thought of it as like being in gym class, being in PE, and you got this little duffel bag or netted bag of balls, and you just roll them out. And you have a group of guys that when you roll them out, they're just ready to go. And I think that's how both the coaches feel. Maybe we ask him that when he comes on today. Maybe that's
Where'd that come from? Had you heard it before?
I've heard it in different ways, too. Like, we can't just roll the ball out and think that we're going to go play good football. Bill used to say that to us all the time.
Well, there we go. Maybe O'Connell got it from Bill. But you're right. Gym class, duffel bag, those red rubber balls, when it's time for dodgeball or whatever, they roll the balls out. And the only time in football they ever rolled the ball out was in the original XFL. That's how they determined, and they didn't roll it. I think they dropped it from a helicopter, but at least they did in the first game. But yeah, that's how you do the coin toss. Two guys going after the football. So they rolled the ball out or dropped the ball or threw the ball into the middle of the field, whatever the case may be. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.